It's now time to take a look at headline stories into this news. And our main news is Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, who is set to be announced as the Director General of the World Trade Organization today in Geneva. And Rotus Odiri, our business analyst and correspondent, is here with us in the studio to lead us into that story. Over to you, Rotus Odiri.
Good morning, Doctor. Good morning, Tony. Good morning, viewers. So the World Trade Organization's top decision-making body, the General Council, will today meet February 15 to decide on the next Director General. Nigeria's Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala is widely expected to be chosen to fill a months-long leadership void at the global trade body after the Biden administration endorsed her for the position last week. Once confirmed by consensus, she will be the first woman and the first African to head the body. Arise News will be providing exclusive coverage through the day of the decision of the WTO General Council and, as expected, once Dr. Okonjo-Iweala is confirmed, coverage of her acceptance speech from her home in Maryland in the United States. And also we'll have an exclusive chat with Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala herself. Dr. Tundu Rufai, Arise News has been covering this, for the past year since this announcement was made with the nominees for the Director General position when the Brazilian head vacated the position a year early. Were you optimistic? I guess if we look at Trump's blockage and then the Biden administration coming in, did you feel optimistic that we would get to this stage where we are now?
Oh, absolutely. We knew it, didn't we? We had our Ashrabi ready to go. We have always known delay is not denial. I'm so excited. This is an amazing day to be a Nigerian.
Indeed. Indeed. Doctor, are you optimistic that we're going to get here?
Yes, I was very optimistic. And according to the rules of the Council of the WTO, the Director General is chosen by consensus. Now, Robert Azevedo, the Brazilian who was holding that position, having decided to leave a year earlier, then there were calls for nominations. And Nigeria in June 2020 had nominated Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. And then again, after all the voting rounds and all that, she emerged as the main candidate with the majority of the votes. But the South Korean candidate refused to step down. And then the biggest opposition to our candidacy came from the United States under President Trump. You remember Robert Lighthizer, that was the U.S. trade representative at the time. He had come up with this point that Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala did not have experience as a trade expert. Many people contested that given her credentials, that would not be something that would stand. But the South Korean candidate did not step down. But that South Korean candidate, Madam Yu, the trade minister of South Korea, eventually did on February 5. And this was in consultation with the United States. And the United States, on February 5, under a new president, President Joe Biden, had endorsed Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. So I think that the major turning point in all of this is the stepping down of Madam Yu of South Korea and the United States throwing its weight behind Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. And I think that the support of the United States is going to help a lot because Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala says our mission is to clear the eyes of the WTO. In other words, this is the WTO does not have correct vision. What she's bringing onto the table is correct vision in terms of reform. There will be challenges, of course, but I think that the support of the United States will help to establish goodwill and will give her the kickstart that she requires. I think it's also important that she has the entire support of the African bloc. Yeah, there were initial objections from Egypt and Kenya, where they also have, I think it's Ms. Mohammed.
Right.
Who has also had significant experience. But that was settled. The whole of Africa stood behind Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. And more importantly, she enjoys the support of her country. And I keep saying it, that President Buhari's support and the support of all of us in this room and all Nigerians out there, is also a very good source of oxygen for her. But what we look forward to will be how she handles this responsibility, the various challenges that she faces, and the challenges are quite many. But I guess we'll get into that in the course of this conversation.
Indeed. Rufai, just pivoting from piggybacking from what Doctor just said about the challenges. As we speak, Australia is taking China to the WTO over barley tariffs. I think China imposed about 80% tariffs on barley coming from Australia. They don't like it. They're taking them to the WTO. The appellate body that is supposed to be reviewing these trade disputes was weakened by the Trump administration because they blocked so many of these appointments. And Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, as expected, once she is confirmed, is going to have to review review the body and put people together that can review these kind of disputes. We're going to a break right now, but Rufai, when we come back from the break, I want to get your take on how she's going to manage these massive disputes between nations like Australia and China.
Welcome back to the morning show here on the Arise News Channel. Rotus Odiro is still here, helping us to review the expected announcement of the emergence of Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala as the Director General of the World Trade Organization sometime today. Back to you, Rotus.
Thank you so much, Doctor. Thanks to you. Rufai, I was just about to come to you before the break. Doctor was talking about the reform agenda that Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala has in store for the WTO. And I was asking you about the challenges ahead and how her experience can come into play to surmount those challenges, using the example, for example, this dispute between China and Australia. Rufai.
So for me, I'll say Harambe to the whole of Africa, and I'm really excited this has happened in the first place. It's long overdue. When you check the chart of people that were gone in for that position, she was the most qualified, obviously. And let me tell you what she brings. She brings in a 3 to 4 prong approach. Number one, she's been in development economies for a very long time of her life. You know, the World Bank segue into working with government. So she's the only person that has a sort of like a 4-pronged approach. She's worked development economy. She's worked for government of a country as Minister of Finance 2 times, 2 rounds she's done. She's also been on the board of a commercially listed tech company, that's Twitter. Then she's gone back to development finance. She's worked for Gavi. She's worked across board when it comes to dispensing, vaccines and the likes. So she has sort of like a 4-pronged approach to handle this. It's a great thing you talked about China and Australia. Barley is a big deal. Australia ships a lot of barley into China, 2.5 million tons they ship into China. What happens is Australia has had a steady year-on-year economic growth for close to 22 years because of the proximity with China. China has a big market, but China is not happy because Australia said some things a bit against the way the government of China was run. And China got upset. And the first way to slam Australia was tariffs. So they put in the tariffs there, taking effect from the 19th of May. The impasse has started. It's a diplomatic row, and it's got into a trade row. Because anytime a diplomatic row happens, the first thing happens is a trade row. Because countries will look and say, what can I do to hurt this country? Then tariff comes in. How she's going to solve it? She has negotiated one of the greatest intergovernmental debt deals in Nigeria's history. When she did that with the Pirate Club in the early 2000s, to be able to, reduce Nigeria's debt. And it takes a lot of negotiation and consultation. And she's got a broad base of consultation. And when you see all the nations that have supported her before, it's definitely something she can sit down on the table, call China and call Australia to talk. She's got great partnership in Australia. I'll tell you this for free. She's very good friends with the former Prime Minister of Australia, Julia Gillard. In fact, they wrote a book together about women in leadership that they just premiered recently. So you can see the edge she's got. She's got close contact in China. She's got close contact in Australia. And Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala is somebody that definitely she can bring people on the table to talk. She knows how to bring people on the table to talk. Another very big one for her will be the Doha rounds. And has been a very sticky, messy situation in the World Trade Organization. And guess what she's going to do as regards that? I know definitely. She's going to bring a lot of people together to talk about that. As regards, conversations on, the furtherance of trade in the world and having fair trade of some sort. Also, another sticky point for her will be America and China. You see what's happening? It's not today that America has always talked about the sticky point of trade. In fact, America accused Japan back in the 80s of being a currency manipulator. America and Japan had to settle that in something called the Plaza Agreement in 85. It was done at the Plaza Hotel in New York. So that Japan can, put a realistic front forward for their currency so that their goods can effectively compete with America. Now the case is China. That's why Trump keeps striking America first and China is outdoing us. China is a currency manipulator. And this is what Trump and his team, Felix Lighthouse, did do as regards trade, putting those tariffs to be able to protect their nation and have some edge of protection. But one thing she's going to do is she knows how to call everybody to the front pedal to tell us that, see, if trade is symbiotic and is some sort fair across nations of the world, then we can all have collective progress and development. And it's going to be a sticking point for her. The economy of the world is taking a beating. IMF is shouting that economic growth will be dismal after the coronavirus pandemic. You know, flight growths and things like the aviation industry and sectors all around the world are reeling from this pain. But what I feel she's going to do with the broad brace of experience she's got on Main Street and Wall Street is to be able to call everybody on the table and use those great partnerships and contacts she has across the world to put people on the table to talk, because trade will always be a sticky point.
Fantastic, Rufai. Thank you for that. Dr. Otundu, Rufai made some very good points about how Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala is going to draw on her network from her decades of experience in the corporate sector and also at the multilateral level with the World Bank and so on. I think, fortunately for her, while President Trump pushed protectionism, you've got Biden pushing multilateralism, and she's also in support of that. So you think with what Rufai is saying, they're bringing people together, a multilateral approach, WTO, that should allow her to have, while challenges ahead, should allow her to succeed in the position?
Well, we certainly hope so. The way I see it is that she has to corral some of these trade disruptive practices from China and from the US. You'll recall how anti-multilateralism President Trump was, right, and how he refused to nominate representatives for America for WTO's appellate body, right, which completely hamstrung that function of dispute resolution. How can the World Trade Organization be unable to resolve disputes among themselves? So this is something she's going to really have to work on. And we all saw what COVID-19 did to supply chains all over the world. That's going to have to be addressed. And just a spirit of transparency, really, with trade policies. You know how President Trump used to fly off the handle and impose trade tariffs on his own, right, unilaterally. I am hoping she'll bring an end to such practices.
Doctor, what do you think?
The big elephant in the room is China, because there is a growing consensus that China is perpetually going off the handle in terms of how China respects WTO rules. And that was the basis for the objection to China by the United States and the imposition of tariffs on China. So one of the major challenges that Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala is going to face will be managing these two big egos in the room, China and the United States, and the implications for global trade. Because each time you have that tariff war between these two countries, then of course the rest of the world, particularly the developing countries, suffer. Second point is about the appellate body, the judicial appellate body, which had been in comatose all these years because the Trump administration was blocking appointments to it. One of the major functions of the WTO is to make sure that trade goes smoothly and to resolve disputes. We will need to go back to make sure that that body begins to function. Now, how Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala is able to do that will require a lot of diplomacy, a lot of negotiation, skills that she brings to the table in great abundance. Now, there's also this issue about the relationship between poor countries and rich countries, you know, and how these two different parts of the world, how they survive in relation to WTO rules. So how do we ensure equity? How do we ensure justice in terms of global relationships? Now, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala herself has said, apart from giving the WTO a clear set of eyes, I'm quoting her directly, she says she will also be committed to issues of peace, security, and stability, and that dealing with the challenge of poverty is important because trade, as far as she is concerned, is a major tool of poverty, is a major tool of addressing the challenge of poverty. And then, of course, there is the Doha round, which had been suspended since 2001. We need to go back to that Doha round, but we need to take a short break now. Rutus, thank you very much. That's all.
Thank you.
This morning on the news headlines. We take a short break now. When we return, we will have Michael Wilson, Adesua Omorwan, and Aaron Akerijola to give us updates on Africa, global business, COVID-19, and sporting activities across the globe.
Right, moving on for more business update. Michael Wilson joins us now from London. Michael, great to have you.
Good morning. Yeah, not much really materially changed over the weekend. Still the same kind of things we were talking about on Friday, fixated with the Biden stimulus plan in the United States. United States, of course, on holiday today, or at least the markets are. World awash with liquidity actually looking for some kind of return where interest rates are sort of 0% or lower. The market turnover is also muted because of the Lunar New Year holiday. However, lots of data releases coming from around peripheral parts of Asia, including Japan. GDP rose by higher than expected 3% this morning. Thailand and Singapore slightly lower. But the Nikkei made another 30-year high today, touching 30,000 before retreating. But it's still an impressive 1.3% higher on the day. It's being seen as a signal of global recovery. Kospi also rallied as well. India could become the world's second largest COVID vaccine maker, according to Deloitte. Analysts say the company has the capacity to produce both for its own population and other developing countries. And even before COVID-19, it was the South Asian country produced up to 60% of the world's vaccines at a relatively low cost. US closed, as I said, today. US markets not doing a great deal. But Bitcoin, I don't know about you, but lots of chat in the weekend newspapers about Bitcoin. Corporations, fintech competitors, and the rest of them sparking fears of being left behind now. So they're all adopting it. JP Morgan co-president Daniel Pinto has said that it will use some measures to embrace Bitcoin. Goldman Sachs had a conference about it last week. It could well go up to 50,000 this week. It could go up to 50,000 within the next 30 minutes. Who knows? But we're seeing gradual adoption of it, but it's a long, long way to go. It's certainly something that's speculative rather than investable, I would say. UK FTSE. Now, this is an interesting one. I talked a lot about the year of 1709 on Friday being the last time that GDP was so bad. Well, yes, it is, but at the same time, it looks like the FTSE has actually escaped a second double-dip recession, and we'll see about that. And also, 15 million people actually getting their jabs in the country. So, if everything goes according to plan, we could see restrictions actually loosening. That in itself, and this happens to other countries as well, raises the much-discussed subject of when this pent-up demand will actually happen if people have indeed been saving. Looks like Easter will be the time when we can actually go out of our homes and maybe meet people. UK investors are complaining that they're flying blind. What this means is that they're not getting any notice about takeover approaches, and the takeover panel is going to adopt that. In other words, if you're invested in a company, if it attracts some kind of takeover attraction, then the shares tend to go up. But the question is, what is a firm approach? That's something which the takeover panel is looking at today. And also here, UK MPs are asking for a cost-benefit analysis on future COVID restrictions. Not before time. Brent crude, WTI, relative strength. It's looking, I would say, still slightly overbought, quite honestly. Speculative frenzy. Copper is back to 7.5-year highs. Platinum up to... both of those things actually talk a lot about industrial production going up, particularly as far as cars are concerned. Gold unchanged, and that's really how the week will be. Week ahead, we've got UK retail sales, we've got inflation in the UK, public sector borrowing, FOMC minutes today, and US retail sales and various flash PMAs coming out of Europe. So the markets will start to hot up again, but China and China not really back to prominence until Thursday. So things will be relatively quiet as far as Asia's concerned. That's the global view this Monday morning.
Michael, I would like your comment on the subject we've been discussing all morning, which is the meeting of the WTO this morning in Geneva, and the likelihood that at some point today we may have an announcement confirming Dr. Okonjo-Iweala of Nigeria as the next Director General of the WTO. What are the challenges that you think she's likely to face? And what kind of advice will you give her?
Yeah, I think you've aired them quite comprehensively. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I think that trade is going to be absolutely important. There are all sorts of things about how you actually increase trade, you keep green environments, but also you raise a lot of people out of poverty. But I think, as you've been saying this morning, the major challenge is China, really, and how she's going to react to that. She's a very accomplished woman. She, as you say, she's got lots of international contacts and so on, and how she's going to fit in with the more accommodative stance apparently coming from the United States as far as China's concerned. I think China is basically the key to it. Lots of other problems, of course, but China is the big one, I think.
Right. I quickly want to talk about Bitcoin again. There's a rally going on, and the rally with Bitcoin, as you can buy from other sites like Robinhood and the likes, and eToro and some other sites like that, is the fact that you have people like Elon Musk pushing up this rally. The 50,000 you talked about, the $50,000 mark, it's been pushed up by the likes of Elon Musk. And what you need about money really is trust. I mean, if money cannot be trusted, then the value goes down, just like the Americans saw when their money was pegged against gold before Nixon turned away the gold standard. At some point, they were printing $3,000 single dollar bills. It was that bad for them. But Bitcoin has that momentum. What's your take on this?
Yeah, it could. I mean, it could go down in the next 30 minutes. As I said, I just don't know. Again, it's not really. It's very tradable at the moment. But is it actually? Does it have any intrinsic value to itself in the same way that other virtual currencies around the world, like the dollar, the naira, sterling, the euro, come to think of it, and maybe possibly the renminbi, if that were ever to become a tradable currency?
Does fiat money has intrinsic value?
Sorry?
Michael, does fiat money really have intrinsic value?
Well, it has more. No money has intrinsic value. I'll give you that. It's all virtual, but at the same time, if it's backed by a central bank, then in our terms of reference, then it tends to have some kind of intrinsic value. Bitcoin isn't like that at all. And as you say, it can go up on mentions. It can go down again. It's something which may well develop. I mean, we are going to be talking about it for a long time, but it is not mainstream yet. It's still very much a speculative play.
Well, Michael, should I be congratulating the United Kingdom for the fact that today, February 15, the Prime Minister has almost met the target of 15 million doses COVID-19 vaccination. And about over 15 million people have received the first dose. But, you know, the excitement is now generating concern that maybe very soon High Street will be back. Some of the lockdown restrictions will be relaxed. What's the conversation around that? Has Britain reached a point where it can relax the lockdowns and High Street can return?
No, I don't think there'll be a relaxation. We'll get more details of this a week today on February the 22nd, when the Prime Minister said he would give this kind of roadmap, as they call it, towards people actually coming out of their homes and going towards high streets and so on. I think the high streets have changed, though, I mean, in terms of shops and so on. I think that irrevocably, I mean, the chat now is what's going to happen to big department stores and their premises and so on, bricks and mortar premises. Will they change function? Yes, I probably guess they will. How will they change? I don't know. But those are the kind of things that are going on at the moment. And commercial property is really having to rethink its role. I think it would be just quite nice to go out and meet people. I'm personally, of course, looking forward to the time when we can go to our local pub. That's what will do it for me. I think a lot of people...
That's the one that concerns you.
So that leads me to my question. How successful would you consider Rishi Sunak's Eat Out to Help Out scheme? And what do you think of those proposing a part 2 of that scheme, Deliveroo and 300 others in the food industry, saying that obviously the restaurant business, hospitality business has really been crippled? Do you think there should be another Eat Out to Help Out scheme around Easter?
I think that was what it was quite a good idea at the time. I think it was a bit of if I can use a cooking metaphor, flash in the pan, quite honestly. And I'm not exactly sure how it would work again. I feel as though it would be good to get retail food, as it were, and pubs back on their own feet without the government having to subsidise things. I think once we've got to that position, then we can say that, you know, the crisis is getting towards being containable, not over, but containable. No more over than flu is. We still get flu every year, but we don't close the economy down because of it. That's the kind of discussion going on at the moment. So to answer your point, I think it'd be a good idea if restaurants and pubs and the rest of them were to be open, but not with government subsidy, standing on their own 2 feet.
All right, let's talk about Eurozone economy. Mario Draghi, becoming the Prime Minister, has been able to, get people on board to form a government. That's about the 4th largest economy in Europe. That economy, too, was touted as part of the PIGS economy. That's Portugal, Italy, and other economies that were not doing well, Greece and the likes that were not doing well in Europe. I mean, what is it going to do well this time around? I mean, Italy, this is the second time they're putting in a technocrat in power. The first time was Mario Monti. Now it's Draghi.
Well, the thing is, what he has to do, first of all, is he has to justify the largest chunk of stimulus money, which is actually going towards Italy. It's the largest chunk of the European Union. It's a huge amount of euros. So they're getting. So he will have to do that. He may not, of course, survive because Italy is a very, very is a very kind of fragmented political situation. I think we're over 50 prime ministers since the end of the Second World War. I think what he'd like to do is become president of Italy and therefore move up from the sort of, the maelstrom of politics. But I think it's got a long way to go. I mean, it's got all its problems. It's got lack of structure in its industry. It's got lack of tax collection. It's a bit like Greece, really. It's a muddle. And it needs sorting out. It doesn't really have a functioning legal system either, never mind corruption. So really, it has a long, long way to go. He's got 2 years effectively to do it. Then there will be elections. I suspect there may well be elections before then. He may not be in his present job by the end of the year. That's what I'm reading over the weekend.
Well, I mean, Michael, there was a question I had wanted to ask you on Friday. I don't know whether we still have time for it. And that's the Biden administration pulling back on the TikTok case in court and setting up a committee saying that they will take a second look at it and try to make sure that it is indeed true or not that TikTok poses a threat. Now, where are we with that? What's your take? Is this a softening, an indication of a soft approach towards China on the part of the Biden administration?
I think what it is it shows that he's more accommodative. At least there's discussion about it rather than just saying one thing one day and one thing the next, in the same way that President Trump did when he was in power. I think Biden wants to be more collegiate about all this kind of thing. I'm not sure there'll be any kind of different conclusion at the end of it, but it does show discussion and it does show he's willing to listen. It's all more. It's his way of doing things. He takes opinion from various people, then decides on it. And as we know, most good leaders actually do that kind of thing.
All right, thanks so much for your time, Michael. Really appreciate you. We'll go for a quick break now. When we come back, we'll talk to Adesola Moro. She knows everything about COVID-19. She does us excellently well. I can tell you for free. We'll be right back. Just keep it locked. All right, welcome back to the Morning Show right here. We're going straight to Adesola Moro. Everything COVID-19. Adesola, good morning.
Good morning, Rafai. Good morning, Dr. Abatta. Good morning, Tundu. Good morning. Great to be here again. Well, there are still thousands of infections globally and hundreds of deaths from the coronavirus infections. Currently, there are now 108.8 million infections and 2.39 deaths globally from this virus. Here in Nigeria, the NCDC has confirmed 520 new cases of COVID-19 in the last 24 hours. Now, the latest data shows that the largest number of infections came from Ondo State, southwest of Nigeria, which saw 120 cases. Now, the last time we saw the country record cases around the 500 mark was almost 2 weeks ago, beg your pardon. It is not clear what is responsible for this yo-yo-like movement, but we have been advised by the NCDC boss to interpret with caution. Meanwhile, staying in Nigeria, it was another weekend of crackdown by law enforcement on recalcitrant event centers and nightclubs in Nigeria's epicenter of the COVID-19 pandemic, which is Lagos. In a statement issued on Saturday, the government, through its Safety Commission and the State Police Command, sealed about 14 facilities for non-compliance with COVID-19 health protection regulation of the state, as well as that of the federal government. The Commissioner for Police, Hakeem Odumosu, says the police will continue to monitor compliance across the state, while warning that COVID-19 violators and perpetrators will be arrested and charged to court. Away from Nigeria, the 4-week WHO mission to China to uncover the origins of COVID-19 vaccine, wrapped up their mission last week. But while we await the team's preliminary reports due any day from now, Dominic Dwyer, an Australian infectious disease expert who is a member of that team, has been granting interviews over the weekend, and he says China refused to give raw data on early COVID-19 cases. According to him, they requested raw patient data on 174 cases that China had identified in the early phase of the outbreak in the city of Wuhan, as well as other cases, but they were only provided with a summary. China has not responded to these latest claims, but you recall that Beijing has previously defended its transparency in handling the outbreak, as well as its cooperation with the WHO mission team. Well, finally, the Oxford University is set to test its coronavirus vaccines in children as young as 6, in a move that expands coronavirus vaccine trials to the youngest age group in the world yet. This is coming after Pfizer and Moderna began their own testing in children over 12 years old in October and December, respectively. So far, we know that children are much less affected by the novel coronavirus than adults, but there is still a risk, and some experts are arguing that vaccinating children might actually be essential for us to curb the pandemic and build herd immunity on time, because children are potential vectors for the virus. Now, for this Oxford trial, we are going to see 300 children between the ages of 6 and 17. The trial will assess whether the vaccine produces a strong immune response in them. 240 out of those 300 will be given the COVID-19 vaccines, and then the remaining participants will be given a meningitis jab as a control. The trial is set to begin this month. It's taking place at the Oxford University and its sister sites in London, Southampton, and Bristol.
I mean, we've always said this about China, so I'm not surprised about this story at this
Just last week.
Just last week we said it, and I knew this was exactly what China was going to do. Cover up, and it's obvious. You know, I made a reference to the book Bob Woodward wrote, yes, you did. And he talked about the fact that Pottinger, the Deputy National Security Advisor, said something had gotten out of hand in China, and the Chinese can't control it. Pottinger cannot lie based on the information it has. This is the Deputy National Security Advisor of America. A lot of intelligence report comes to him. And definitely, I know he cannot lie about what he did. And this reported speech I'm giving was the briefing to Donald Trump. That was what Donald Trump too heard before he said, let's put it under the carpet. This happened in February. So China not letting them in, I am not surprised. This is happening. And that's why the world keeps kicking against the World Health Organization and Dr. Ghebreyesus. That, see, it looks as though we are pampering China. China still needs to come clean on all of this. Because when you look at the indices, I don't want to go there, but I'm going to go there. Look at the indices, look at economic growth. China has still maintained the same economic growth 5 years down the line, 6.5% growth. They shook this off and they moved on. But the world that is competing with them economically is suffering from it. Look at the UK, look at America's economy, look at other economies. Minus, minus, minus. Every time I look at the economists and see the economic growth chart, it's only China I see and Turkey in blue, 6.5% growth and 6.9% growth. It is shocking. China needs to tell us something we do not know.
Well, I don't imagine that China would tell us what they think we do not need to know. But that
I like that, Dr. Abati.
That precisely is where the problem is.
Yes.
About a week ago, there was some optimism that the Chinese authorities were cooperating. And in fact, one of the spokespersons for that WHO team was saying, oh, they were allowed to go to the Wuhan Institute of Virology. They were allowed access to the Wuhan market where the initial cases were reported. Now, the bone of contention now is that they're asking for raw data on the first 174 reported cases from Wuhan, so that they can analyze the raw data. But what the Chinese is offering is a summary. And the researchers, the investigators are saying, we don't want a summary. Give us the raw data. We will do our own independent analysis. And we're told that in many of the sessions that they had together, it degenerated into shouting matches between the WHO team and the Chinese authorities. So the Chinese authorities, they have, in a sense, confirmed our worst fears, that there is a cover-up involved. But I think the United States are putting more pressure on China, and the WHO are standing firm, will be able to get China to comply with what we're told is in line with standard practice in situations like this. But I'm not too sure that the WHO team itself has helped matters, because as at last week, they were saying, they were sure that there was no escape from any laboratory. In fact, they were even suggesting that, perhaps they should look towards Southeast Asia for the source of the virus. And some persons expressed concern that could this be a rubber stamp, WHO team? But we hope that the matter will be resolved, because the purpose of that 4-week adventure to China is to be able to establish the origin of the virus so that future occurrences can be prevented. Now, the geopolitics of it that is coming to the fore will seem to be against the achievement of that objective. Now, in Lagos, yes, over the weekend, yes, we're told clubs were shut down. There was even a birthday party in Oniru. I think I know somebody who lives around that place.
Dr. Abati.
And some people were having a birthday party.
Dr. Abati, I didn't do any birthday party in Oniru. I live in Oniru, but I didn't do any birthday party there.
And that particular club was shut down. 74 persons were arrested. Around Lagos, 136 vehicles were impounded by the Lagos State Safety Commission and the Lagos State Police Command. Now, we have always said here that, look, the law must be enforced. But the law itself must be enforced according to due process. Okay? Nigerians, from the way we behave, we don't seem to even believe that COVID-19 exists. People are just carrying on as if life is normal. So that's why we should support the task force in the Federal Capital Territory, which has woken up, the Lagos State Safety Commission that has also woken up. But the Lagos State authorities must be reminded that they cannot politicize the enforcement of the COVID-19 guidelines. The kind of politicization that we saw at the Lekki Toll Gate on Saturday, February 13. They should not mix politics with the enforcement of the guidelines.
And it has to be said, Dr. Abati, thank you so much for what you said. I just want to say that.